Hey guys, this is Mike from Craft Beer Storm and also founder and brewer at Beara Brewing Company in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Today we're interviewing somebody from a local beer newspaper who has exposure to a lot of breweries. It's called Yankee Brew News, and they cover all of New England. They cover Massachusetts, Vermont, Maine, Connecticut, and New York as well. And I don't know if I missed somebody else. Rhode Island. If I missed somebody, sorry. But they also have other regional papers. They're part of a larger company. But we're interviewing Scott Kaplan, who's a writer for New Hampshire, actually. And I've known Scott for a while, and he's a good guy. So I've invited him on. So let's get to it. We're here with Scott Kaplan of Yankee Brew News. How's it going, Scott?
Oh, pretty good, thanks.
Yeah, thanks for making the time to be on the podcast, the Craft Beer Storm podcast. I know we tried a couple times, and I think we were going to do Halloween, but that didn't work out. I guess because the kids and stuff like that, so it wasn't a good night.
Yeah, the Portsmouth Parade always takes me away.
Oh, the Portsmouth Parade, right? Yeah.
So.
So I'm glad you got on, and I know that you've been doing the Yankee Brew News. You always send me emails about submissions, and then you have your contest, and I think you've had a lot of experience with especially New England breweries, and it'd be great to get you on just to kind of share that experience and educate people on craft beer and what these guys are going through. And so, like, the first thing I ask you, like, maybe you can go over your story. How'd you get involved? How'd you get started? Why'd you like craft beer, and you got involved with Yankee Brew News, and your role there? Maybe you can go through that.
Sure. Yeah, if you don't mind, I can go back to my my college days, going way back to the early '80s, when there really wasn't a whole lot of craft beer available, and then Sam Adams was one of the first ones to come on the scene, and that was an eye opener for me as far as beer goes. And I just couldn't get enough of it. I was just drinking Sam Adams left and right. Of course, that was 1984, 1985.
Yeah,
and then,
I'm trying to get Jim Cook on, and I sent him an email, but he says he doesn't want to do it at this time. So I'm just trying to be persistent. If you know him, tell him to come on.
I wish I did.
I met him a couple times, actually. He had this Brewing the American Dream, where he gets businesses that are starting up, and then he just fills the room with like his people, marketing people, sales people, and they give a lot of good advice. Also brings lawyers in and people in the industry to just kind of give advice to people who wanted to start, food, not necessarily breweries, but, food establishments or just businesses in general. So, and I met him a couple times. He's a cool guy. I have a picture with him. But I don't think he knows it's me. I guess if he knew it was me, he'd be on. You think that's it? I think that's what it is. So listen, anybody is Sam Adams, Boston Beer Company. If you're listening to this, tell him it's Mike. Everything's going to be okay. We're trying to get him on, maybe one of his brewers, but we're going to still work on it. So I'm sorry. Keep going.
Yeah. So anyway, things for me just kind of rested in beer appreciation until maybe the early '90s. It was a good 10 years. And my office, where my real day job, we had an office outing, and one of the fellows brought some homebrew, and I tasted it, and I went, "This is really good. You made this yourself?" He says, "Yeah." And I says, "Well, how do you do this?" He says, "Well, there's two places in Portsmouth at the time. There was Brewer, Cook, and Baker, or it was another name then, and then there was Stout Billy's that sold homebrew supplies." So I shopped both of them and got myself a homebrew kit and started, with malt extract brewing, and really liked what I was doing personally. And then it didn't take long before I made the jump to all grain.
Yeah.
And then there was the Seacoast Homebrewers Club, just kind of fostered the hobby as a whole in the area, and I got involved with that. And then taking things to the next level, I got involved with the Beer Judge Certification Program.
Wow.
So I was actually a national judge for a while, judging homebrew contests. And then round about 2002, early like February, I was reading Yankee Brew News, and I saw that they were throwing together a pub crawl in the Metro Boston area. And I said, "Oh, that sounds like a fun day. I could tag along with them for a while." And went and then met the staff. A lot of the staff showed up, and of course there were other people on the pub crawl just from around. And Jamie McGee, the publisher and owner, found out I lived in New Hampshire, and I came down to the Boston area just for the pub crawl. And they were looking for a New Hampshire writer at the time because he was getting ready to push off to Maryland. And he just casually asked me, "Can I write?" And I said, "Well, I'm an engineer by education, but at the moment I was writing the Seacoast Homebrewers newsletter as the secretary, putting together articles and whatnot." And I sent them a writing sample. They liked it, and they hired me.
All right.
And I've been writing the New Hampshire column since like February of 2002.
That's cool. And just going back to your home brewing, just to educate people who are listening, like malt extract, that's it's kind of a liquid. You kind of boil your water, and instead of mashing in, usually what you do is heat up water and then you throw grains in. You let it steep for about an hour, and then that converts the starch to sugar, and then you extract that sugar. But malt extract is kind of already kind of liquid from extracted already, and you add it to your your water, and that's your grain, liquid grain that goes in, and that's the way I guess homebrewers start, and then they get the bug about all grain, and they start doing mashing. And how'd you mash in at home? Did you have a cooler? Or?
Yeah, I had a 10-gallon Gott brand cooler that, of course, already has the spigot on the bottom, which makes it easy to drain and to sparge. So,
right,
just use that, and single infusion, because you get plastic, so you can't really do step mashing or I could have decocted, but that's for lagers mostly.
No, yeah. So single infusion just all at once. So that's good. And then but what's your day job? I saw a Navy extension. Are you in the Navy or?
Civil service. I've been working for the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard since 1985.
Ah,
straight out of college.
Cool. And like you're doing this as a side kind of thing, or?
It's mostly just a hobby.
Yeah.
The whole Yankee Brew News thing is just kind of a hobby that's taken on a life of its own. And it's kind of subbed in for the homebrewing, which I've given up probably 10, 15 years ago.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
It's hard.
This keeps me in the industry, as it were.
Some people come in and say, "Well, I don't like to make it, but I really do like to drink it, though." So they're the people that drink it. So, but you enjoy beer, so that's good.
Yeah.
So now you're I guess your status as an official writer for the Yankee Brew News, or what do you do for them?
Yeah, I'm the New Hampshire columnist.
Okay.
Yankee Brew News. Yeah, Yankee Brew News covers all of New England,
right,
and a little bit of upstate New York and Long Island and New York City. And then there's other regional publications that cover Mid-Atlantic, Southeast, Southwest, Northwest, Great Lakes. And that's it. I think I might be leaving out one, but that's pretty close. So each of the papers is a subsidiary of the Brewing News, and of course the Yankee, like I mentioned, covers New England.
Right.
So we've got me in New Hampshire. I cover the whole state. There's one writer for Maine. There's one writer for Vermont. New York is split between the Hudson River, upstate New York. There's one writer for that, and then there's another writer on Long Island and New York City. We've got one writer in Connecticut, one in Rhode Island, and did I leave anybody out? I think that's it.
No, you covered a lot of ground.
Oh, Massachusetts, of course. Yeah, we got a metro. Yeah, Metro Boston writer, an Eastern Mass writer, and then a Western Mass writer.
Wow. Well, Mass, yeah, there's loads of breweries in Mass. So,
yeah.
Actually, I had Jack from Jack's Abbey on, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. I've never met him, but I know
I
Jack's
haven't met
Abbey
him.
beer well.
Actually, I grew up in New York, and he grew up in the same area as I did. I never knew that. He said, "Yeah, my Dad had an ice company in Mamaroneck. I'm like, what? Mamaroneck's right near where I grew up. And he's like, yeah, we used to deliver to Beverage Mart in Eastchester. I'm like, what? I was like, right down the road from there. So you never know, right? Well, who you're going to meet or where they're from, or it's very interesting. It's really a small world. But so you've been around and talking to brewers and some of the values of promoting local breweries. I mean, that's what we try to do on this podcast, and using local ingredients in beer, and just trying to have everybody go out and just try local beer instead of just going to your supermarket and buying what they tell you to buy, or 24-pack cases and thinking it's beer. And I mean, what have you seen? Like, what's your experience in the whole craft beer industry locally?
Well, the nano brewery explosion is just taking over. New Hampshire has been very kind in their regulations, allowing reduced licensing fees to get the nano breweries up and running. And it's becoming, I would guess, I mean, I'm not a student of history, more like the pre-prohibition days when there were breweries, almost literally in every town, on every corner. And people would stop by their local for a pint on their way home, and then go back to their families. So it's becoming the local meeting place, the social occasion to go hang out, have a beer, and play a game of cribbage with your barmate, and then go home.
Right. Yeah, I mean, pre-prohibition, I think there were 3,000 breweries. Correct me if I'm wrong, and now there's like 6,000. In the country, and growing. I think close to 7.
I don't think that's a bad thing.
That's a good thing. And I was talking to somebody else about it, another podcast, and there's like about, over 10,000 wineries. So if you look at the breweries, in terms of size and number of breweries, we're not even close to that 10,000, 12,000 mark of wineries. So I think there's room for growth. Do you think it's a bubble, or what do you think about the whole explosion in craft beer?
I think it's too soon to call it a bubble, but I am surprised at the rate at which new breweries, nano breweries, are opening. At some point, there is going to be a burst or a level off where there just aren't enough drinking people available to fill the seats.
Wow.
And take home growlers.
We may change that through this podcast to get people in, increasing awareness. We're trying to start a movement here. But
I hope so.
No, you're right. I mean, anything. If you look at anything, even the housing market explosion, that happened, you could look at a curve, like a graph, like it would go gradually, and then all of a sudden it just shoots up. And you're like, what's going on? This cannot be sustained. And it wasn't sustained. It came crashing down. But it'd just be interesting to see what happens with breweries. But I think a lot of breweries, I mean, if they open up and they're not producing good beer, then they don't really last that long. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I mean, the industry is kind of self-correcting. If you don't brew a quality product, people aren't gonna buy it. But there have been very few closures lately. And the only ones I can think of immediately are ones that the business owners have just decided to go in different directions. Right.
Yeah. So there is it's a very positive trend, that breweries are opening, but people are supporting them, which is awesome. And in your journeys, challenges that the brewers are facing, have you come across what they're saying in terms of their challenges to their brewery?
I think the biggest challenge is finding a niche or some unique way of making your brewery different from all the rest.
Right.
And you yourself have got that a great uniqueness where you get all your malts from Ireland, right?
Right. We use an Irish barley base. Yeah, and that's what I said too. I mean, you got to be kind of unique. Have some kind of hook where what makes you different. Because you just can't make an IPA, just throw a bunch of hops in it, and that's cool. Yeah, we'll put it out there, and everybody will buy it. It's not necessarily the case, because there's so many different IPAs out there, and they can compare yours to anybody else's. But you do need a hook, some kind of uniqueness. Yeah. So what do you? Yeah. Go ahead.
And that hook doesn't have to be terribly difficult. It can be, a marketing, a trademark, a theme, something just to bring people in. It could be the pub itself. You got special events going on at your pub that draw people in. So the hook doesn't have to be anything outlandish, as long as you're brewing the good beer to go along with it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you see it in all the breweries. They have their own styles, and, some are successful, and, and others correct. If they come out with some bad beer, then they try to correct. I think in Vermont they do that. This is what I heard. Like if some brewery starts brewing bad beer, they get a whole bunch of people visiting them and saying, "Dude, you got to what are you doing? You have to correct your recipes, or this is the way you do it, not that way." But Vermont's putting out really great, awesome beer.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point too about the industry. Is that the brewing industry is self-supportive? It's probably unlike any other industry that I can think of. The brewers themselves are social amongst themselves. There are brewers unions, and and they just get together to help each other. There's collaboration, not just on brewing and recipes, but on help in the brew house.
Right, and that was very interesting about the industry. When I got involved and I was thinking about opening a brewery, I said, these people are really very helpful. I used to go visit breweries, and they're just like, really no secrets, and this is how we do things, and this is what you need to do, or that's a good idea, or that's a bad idea. And also ingredients, like if I'm running out, if I didn't have any yeast, I'm like, do you have any yeast? I don't have enough, or I forgot to buy it. Or grains, things of that nature, hops, very supportive, and then, I'll borrow some from you and then I'll pay you back. And, but we've had a lot of good experiences with local brewers.
Yeah. And some of the best, beers that have come out too, even from a single brewery who just clean out the closet beers. What are the odds and ends recipe? What are the odds and ends ingredients that you got left sitting around that you can make a beer out of?
Right. You never know. You just got to experiment.
Right.
You have to experiment, with things that you have. So, yeah, I mean, and your view of like big beer and craft beer and how it compares. I mean, what do you see in terms of, the whole dynamic of the big beer and how local breweries are putting out their products as well?
Well, I don't have any empirical evidence to prove this, but I think the nano brewery explosion is putting a little bit of a hurt on the bigger brands, even the bigger craft brands, not just the Bud Coors Miller. Because like I said, it's easy to stroll through downtown Dover on my way home from work and stop at, Garrison City for a pint and a crowler and take it home. Because it's on the way, or it could be on the way. So, craft beer, the little craft beer, is potentially putting a hurt on big beer. And I don't mean big Bud Coors Miller, but even big craft beer.
Well, like regional craft beer.
Yeah, the regional brewers.
Well, yeah, you see it. I mean, there's a lot of breweries, larger breweries that have had a lot of difficulties. I think there's a large trend towards the local, breweries, community breweries, and some of the breweries where they went, national, like Green Flash. What happened to Green Flash was interesting. I mean, they have excellent beer, and then they decided that they wanted to conquer the U.S. and they're in all the states. And then you heard that they're going to pull out of 33 states. I'm like, oh man, what's going on? And then they had their facility in Virginia Beach, which they built, new, and they said, we're just not going to open it. I'm like, oh man, what's going on? And then a couple weeks later, like, all right, we got took over by the VCs came in and they took us over. So I think that's kind of a result of the local people gravitating towards local beers and
Yeah, like I said, I don't have any empirical evidence to prove that, but it just seems a logical assumption.
I think that's what's happening, and also I think the larger, beer entities are seeing the market share being eroded, and they're trying to figure out ways on how to, reverse that trend or try to slow it down. There are conglomerate. Well, there's companies that are being formed, which are acquiring smaller breweries. And then the bigger ones, the larger, national ones go in and step in and they take over the consolidating entity. And now all of a sudden, they're part of the whole craft beer scene, which has been interesting. And I've seen that, recently and in the last couple of years. So,
yeah, but I think that if the breweries that are undergoing takeover or sale or whatever you want to call it, as long as they're brewing and keeping brewing good beer, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I mean, when the quality changes, I know one of the breweries, I don't want to mention it, but it was a regional. Actually, they went all over the nation. They were very good, and they had some good IPAs, and they got bought out by one of the larger breweries, and I've had their beer recently, and it's not the same. It's just not the same. And I don't know what's happening, and that's a sin, because when they came out, they had really excellent beer. So that's kind of disturbing to me. But I understand what you're saying. Like, they can own the smaller breweries, but just keep the product as is. Don't try to cut corners, and that's what makes it great, I guess, the local craft beer. It's more of a passion. I mean, if you're going to go in and open a local brewery to make a lot of money, you should just forget about it. Don't do it. Do something else, because it's a lot of cash flow and a lot of money that you have to put into it.
It's definitely a labor of love. I mean, I don't see it as a huge money maker. People aren't going into brewing because they think they can get rich. They're doing it because they love the job.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I do too. I mean, I'm not rich, and I'm not getting rich because of this, but it's great to just go in and have your recipes and try different things, add different additives to beer, honey, maple syrup, Oreo cookies, which has been really popular, and people have been nuts about it, and they keep asking me when I'm going to make cake again. I'm like, oh man, I got it. That's my next beer. Because it's like I go into bars or restaurants and I have like, all right, we got Outer Limits, we got this double IPA. Like, well, when are you coming back with this cake? I'm like, yeah, I got to do it. I'm going to do it. It's like, well, let me know. I'll take like 3 kegs of it. And I'm like, all right. So we're just getting, talking about empirical evidence. There you go. People want cake. People want the cake.
So how many cases of Oreos go into a batch of cake?
So we do like, we do like 200 gallons of the porter, and then we add 5 gallons of cold brewed coffee, and we do between 10 and 20 pounds of Oreo double stuffed cookies.
The double stuff, of course.
Of course, you have to do double stuff. You can't do the regular, right? We do it, man. No screwing around. But people like it. There's like little white pieces floating in the beer, and then what we do is we take a scoop of vanilla ice cream and we put it in and give them a spoon, and they're like in heaven. They're like, this is awesome.
A beer float.
A beer float. Why not? Right?
Sure.
I hear a lot of dessert wines. I never really hear a lot about dessert beers, and that's what these restaurants are doing. They're offering it as a. I went into Applebee's too. I'm like, look, while the kids are eating like a brownie sundae, offer this to the parents. I think they would enjoy it.
I bet it would go good with their lava cake. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so I think, big beer has its place, ball games, and, if you want an easy beer, you mow the lawn, and want a big beer, that's fine, and you can't really tell people what to drink. But I think the more we can make them aware of local craft beer, the better it is for them. And, because a lot of, when I first tasted, craft beer like you did, the local craft beer and homebrew, I'm like, man, this is like awesome.
There's flavor here. Yeah.
There's flavor, and it's wow, hops and the malt, and whatever additives they have. It's like, this is great, and that's what turned me on to the whole. Well, we had the idea about the Irish barley, but it came up to this area and it was fantastic. The New Hampshire area and the New England area for beer, and it was just tasting one after another. It's like, man, I got to do something about this idea, and we did. We opened Beara. We're going to be 4 actually in November, so I have our 4th anniversary, which is unbelievable.
Well, happy birthday!
Unbelievable. So if you're around in the area, come on down. We're also going to do. Talking to the American Cancer Society, someone up there. We're going to do on the Sunday of that weekend. We're going to do a, if you buy a pint, we give $1 per pint. We donate to the American Cancer Society, which I think is great. It's horrible. Cancer is horrible. It just destroys lives and families and whatever we can.
And you bring up another interesting point too. A lot of the nanos and the locals are supporting very worthy charitable causes. Everything from the American Cancer Society to SPCA to Portsmouth Brewery does Tuesday night their pint nights. They has 3 charity boxes you can throw your token into, and their charities rotate month to month. So it's just amazing that the breweries are doing good things in their community.
I think that's what it's all about, helping the community out and using local ingredients, helping charities. That's, life, it's like being a human being. I do, I guess, I'm like the CPA, I do audit stuff. That stuff is like, doesn't really float my boat, It's great to make some money and support the family, but, for passion, I think the beer is where it's at, and I'm just trying to figure it out now. So we got the podcast going and trying to communicate all the good stuff about craft beer, and So Scott, do you have a favorite beer? Like, what's your favorite beer of all time?
That's not fair.
People ask me that. I'm like, I can't tell you that because it depends, But
I have a favorite beer style. I'd have to go with Bock beer, which is very hard to find.
Oh, I have a Weizenbock.
Especially
you got to come in.
I will.
We just did
but yeah, most breweries, the local guys don't brew lagers in the first place. So finding a Bock beer at all usually means having to buy something German, which is not a bad thing.
I think Liar's Bench, don't they do the Bock Fest or something?
Yes, they do, and that's a fabulous, fabulous event. It's in conjunction with Beer Week in March, and a couple of breweries do come in with Bock beers, and it's just heaven for me.
Have you been to Germany and liked the beers there? Or
I have not been to Germany, no.
Oh man, I went to Oktoberfest once. It was awesome.
Maybe once I retire.
I got to get back there. I just interviewed somebody actually in Germany who was he brewed, and he's working for a company that helps people with their equipment needs, and he's like, there's like an Oktoberfest in every town in Germany. I didn't realize this, but they have their own local festivals, celebrating local beer. And
way to go!
I got to get over there, do the tour.
Well, take me with you.
We can do a remote podcast, Yankee Brew News and Craft Beer Storm collaboration, and do it from Germany. I think that would be good. We got to get somebody to fund it. We can do it.
I'll talk to Jamie, my publisher, but he'll probably go himself. He goes to Germany once in a while.
Yeah, ask him. We'll do it. We'll do something. But that's cool. Now you're doing some events. I think you have a contest coming up for brewers.
Actually, it just was last weekend. It's the
great international.
Yeah, it was the Great International Beer, Cider, Mead, Sake contest.
How did that work out?
This was actually one of the best run contests that I've been to in the last, since 2002 anyway. There were over 700, I want to say about 745 entries.
Wow.
I don't know how many breweries that represented, because a lot of breweries cover multiple categories. And we had about 125 judges that sit in panels of 2, and it's peer judged. Everybody that's a judge is somehow connected to the beer industry, either brewers, writers, distributors, malt suppliers, etc. And it's a contest, this particular one, to judge not the beer that's perhaps closest to style, but the beer that you most like to drink in that style.
Mm-hmm.
So there can be some surprising results.
Do they have the winners, I guess, online or?
Yeah, they're this year is a little bit of delay because Greg Glazer, the guy that owns and runs the contest, is actually going on vacation shortly, and there were still a couple of beer panels that didn't get finished last weekend, so he's going to finish them with some friends of his when he gets back from vacation.
Oh, really? Wow, that's a great job, huh?
It is. So, yeah, the results will be published on the GIBC website probably in 2 weeks.
Do these people that judge it have to be an official beer judge, or like you said, they're part of the industry, or?
Yeah, for this it's just peers. It's just you don't have to have any BJCP qualification or any other judging qualification. Just you do have to know styles. You do have to know what qualities to expect of a stout, a porter, an IPA, an American light lager. So you can point out, if something is to style or is not to style, or even if it's not to style, why you do like it in this category or don't like it in this category. Because, like I said, this isn't a points earning competition. It's peer judged. What's the best beer in this category?
Right. Yeah, I mean that's great. The contest and you also expose breweries that have beer. Maybe people don't know about them, but it's a great way to promote breweries as well. And I think your newspaper is great for that. You have your columns about what's happening with breweries and new events with new beers that are coming out, which is good to educate people on.
Yeah, and that's really the focus of the paper. It's beer from the consumer standpoint. We tell people what the breweries are putting out for product, so that they can be informed and make brewery visits and go check them out.
Yeah, it's awesome. What you guys are doing is great. I appreciate that. And you're going state to state, and there's a lot of good stuff coming on. New breweries coming online, older breweries doing new things, and it's great just to get the information out there, and people can go and visit these guys and support them. So I think what you're doing is excellent. So to wrap it up, I appreciate you being on the podcast, and keep doing what you're doing, and I'll catch up with you soon. I haven't seen you in a while, but if anytime you want to come in, actually I'm here all weekend. I'm in the tap room, so if you're interested, come on in. And
well, I'll see if I can squeeze it in.
You can try the Weizenbach and let me know.
All right.
Oh, we're barrel aging that too. That's going to be the anniversary ale, so we're putting it in a Jim Beam barrel.
Oh goodness, that'll be delicious.
Oh yeah. It's going to be really good. Mid-November. Yeah. So, all right, cool. Hey, Scott, I appreciate your time, and thanks for being on the podcast, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for inviting me.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
That was Scott Kaplan of Yankee Brew News. He writes for New Hampshire, about New Hampshire, what's happening in New Hampshire for breweries. He's a good guy and has a lot of knowledge, and I appreciate him being on. A lot of good beer out there. A lot of breweries popping up too. Like every day, there's a new brewery. That's what I see. But everybody's supporting them, and it's excellent. And if you have a local brewery near you, you should get out there and support them. And go into your local store. If they don't have any craft beer in there, grab the manager and say, "Hey, what's happening? There's no local brewer in here. You need to get it on tap." If you're in a restaurant, you need to get it on tap. If you're in a store, give them a shelf, let them put some products on it. So if you like what we're doing, you like Craft Beer Storm, please, it means the world to me if you can just go on iTunes and subscribe, leave us a review, leave us a rating. That's awesome, and that just gets us up in the rankings, so that way people see us and we can promote craft beer, local craft beer, and preach the gospel that there is an alternative to mass-produced watered-down beer, and that's excellent local craft beer. So until next time, guys, take care.